Chapter 15. Nicomedes' Workshop. Ghede slid down the deck and leapt over the railing. He patted the hull of the ship, as a proud owner might a horse. Gabriella was hanging by her straps. She unbuckled herself, then helped Omanuju from his seat. He clambered over the slanted deck to the cabin and yanked at the doors. The ship had settled unevenly, and Gabriella rushed over to help force the doors open. The cabin floor was covered with unrolled scrolls. A sextant, a compass, a sewing kit, and all manners of items had fallen from the cupboards. Rivulets of ink dribbled down across the tilted floor from a shattered inkwell. Adamantus had anchored himself beneath the navigation table. The elk's antlers were dug into the underside of the table, and his legs folded around the narrow plinth that held the table up in its center. His fur was splattered with ink, and a map was speared on the end of one of his antlers. Gabriella slid the map carefully from his antler, trying to avoid ripping it further. "What a terrible mess," Gabriella said. "I'll take this over being wyvern food," Omanuju said. After all the rocking, dipping, and other evasive maneuvers, the elk was well stuck in place. It took both Omanuju and Gabriella to dislodge his antlers from the table. When they did, the elk slid across the floor, his hooves scraping the planks as he tried to stand. He swayed as if drunk until he could clomp towards the open doors and bound out through them. He continued to skitter across the deck, only recovering himself when he leapt the railing and stepped onto level ground. Gabriella followed him but hesitated at the rail of the ship. The white wall of water at the mouth of the cave lit up again in reds and oranges, a window of stained glass. "The wyvern is still outside. He's breathing fire at the falls." "He can spit all he wants," Ghede said next to a yawning gash in the hull where a board had been sheared away. "But he won't get through, not unless he uses mage fire, and I reckon he won't find us worth that." "Mage fire?" Gabriella repeated. Before she could ask what it was, a second, more pertinent question arose in her mind. "And the sylphs?" "Spent," Omanuju said, the relief in his voice clear. The manifestation they took just outside the falls would have required a great deal of strength for them. Since they did not catch us, it will take them some time to recover their energies. They are not gone for good, but they are gone for a while. The immediate danger passed. Gabriella climbed out of the elan, breathed out a deep sigh, and rolled her shoulders. They were still sore from the harnesses. Her eyes were drawn towards Adamantus, who stood silhouetted by water and fire. In that instant, he seemed as magical and wondrous as the wyvern, two mysterious, magical beasts gazing through a window of falling water. One as gentle as the other was deadly, and yet equal in their grandeur. Gabriella had the sense that the solution to some great mystery was in front of her, but like a baby trying to decipher numbers and letters, the meaning was out of her reach. Only the sense of imminence remained. "You see it too?" Omanuju asked. "Yes. They're wondrous." "Indeed." "Ahoy, friends!" Ghede called from the pier as he walked towards the door and opened it. "Stop your gazing and follow your skipper. We have work to do." Inside the room, an eerie green light danced and moved about like the light of a lantern when moths gathered around it. But no lantern Gabriella had ever seen glowed green. If there were lanterns burning, it meant that they were not alone. Gabriella was afraid of who or what they might find in this cave, and stopped just short of the doorway. Omanuju stepped next to her and said, "Look up." The roof was the source of the light. Although the walls of the room were stone, the ceiling was transparent. "It's made of glass, a thick glass," Omanuju said. "A clever solution to illuminate an underground workshop." "The river runs over it?" "Yes, just before it drops over the cliff outside." "It's beautiful," Gabriella said, mesmerized by the fluid green light above her until the crash on the work table in the center of the room startled her. Ghede had lifted a large chest from the floor and deposited it on the table. It was wood, but unlike the wood of the doors, it did not look weathered or old. The box was sealed with a formidable-looking lid that was ringed with gargoyle faces. Each little creature was carved with exquisite detail, but the one thing the gargoyles had in common was wide-open mouths, revealing small numbered dials. The room was packed full with benches and tables, the walls lined with sets of hanging tools, including wrenches and screwdrivers, and other items Gabriella could not name. Shelves of glass drawers held screws, nails, nuts, bolts, and pulleys. There was a clear order to the tools, each arranged according to size in neat rows. The same order guided the smaller items in the drawers. Even the stools under the benches were arranged in sequence of smallest to largest. This was really where Nicomedes worked? Gabriella asked. Yes, Omanuju said, at least in his later life, when some of the members of the Dis nobility had grown corrupt and Nicomedes had become suspicious of them. He decided to bring his work here, to keep it secret from those who might use it for nefarious ends. All his life, Nicomedes had used his gifts to serve the needs of the people of Dis. Omanuju lifted a screwdriver and blew the dust off it. He brought clean water to people's houses, found ways to manage the sanitation needs of Dis, and made machines for transporting heavy goods so that the men and women would not strain themselves carrying heavy loads. He found ways to improve the navigation of ships and how to make them safer. He designed roads to accommodate heavy traffic safely. He invented new ways to store grains, milks, and cornmeal so they did not spoil. He improved filters so almost any water could be made safe to drink. He did so much, and he just gave it away? Nicomedes believed that technology, like wealth, should be shared by all. Omanuju looked at Gabriella. His work made him a hero. He was loved by people all over the kingdom for his generosity and was close friends with the king of Dis. But what happened? Why does this place seem abandoned? When the king's son, Siler, took the throne, he fell under the influence of the mages, of a cruel and greedy empire, one that used the power of magic to rule its people. The mages guarded the secrets of their magic jealously. They wanted Nicomedes to do the same with his technology, and they wanted him to make weapons for conquest. The mages did not like that he shared his inventions and how he worked with the people. They believed secrecy should veil all power. Omanuju put down the screwdriver and walked over to the drawers, idly opening one and then another. By the time he reached his twilight, Nicomedes had accumulated a great fortune in books and treasure. The books he had sought out, but the treasure had often been given to him out of thanks. He had always intended to leave his library and his treasure to the people of Dis, but as he aged, he knew that the mage's influence over Siler had grown, and Nicomedes was afraid that after his own death, all he had created would fall into their hands. So he hid everything in his tower over the city, and he surrounded that tower with a labyrinth full of traps that required knowledge to defeat, not magic. Gabriella's eyes roved about the room, mesmerized by the green light dancing on the walls. Ghede mentioned the labyrinth. Is there something here that will help us through? Is that why we are here? Ghede patted the chest. One step ahead of you, lassie. The map to the labyrinth is inside this chest. He rubbed the dust from the gargoyle faces to reveal the numbered dials in their mouths. Each dial could be turned to the numbers 0 through 9. Are you certain this is the box? Omanuju asked, running his hand over the lid. Pretty certain, Ghede said, not looking up as he fiddled with the dials. Gabriella did not bother asking how he knew. It was another thing she was learning to take on faith as far as Ghede was concerned. The box was made of dark cherry-stained wood. The fastenings and corners were a bright white metal that mysteriously had retained its sheen over the centuries, unlike the other trunks and boxes resting on the floor, which looked tarnished and worn. The wood was carved with lifelike sunflowers, pine cones, pineapples, and nautilus shells, a collection of mismatched objects that seemed somehow familiar to Gabriella, but she couldn't recall where she had seen them paired together before. Ghede began clicking the numbers into place. He confidently moved from one dial to the next, making a circuit of the box. When he had clicked each into place, he put his hands on the lid and took a deep breath. Gabriella sensed he was pausing for the sake of drama. With a flourish, he moved to open the chest. It remained shut. A wry smile formed at the corner of Ghede's mouth, and he chuckled. He pushed on the lid harder. It did not budge. He checked the combination, his exasperation building. He tried the lid again. Blast it! He cursed. I thought I had figured it out for sure. Gabriella sat dejectedly on a stool. Apparently, there was a limit to Ghede's knowledge. He took a second look at the box and suddenly froze. He waved Omanuju over to his side. "There is a plate here with writing. It's runes." Gabriella could not read it, but Omanuju could. It says, "The combination, worthy friend, is of numbers that are not of numbers." "Well, that seems singularly unhelpful," Ghede said. "When are numbers not of numbers?" Omanuju squinted at the shapes of the chest, running his fingers over them. He smiled. "Perhaps numbers are not of other numbers when they are in nature. Look at these items. Each of them is governed by the sequence of sums." "Sequence of sums?" Gabriella asked. Ghede shrugged his shoulders, but Omanuju went to one of the workbenches rummaging around until he found a quill. "Gabriella, bring me a blank scroll and a well of ink, would you?" She ran to the Elan, clambered over the gunwale and up the listing deck to the cabin doors. She shuffled through the mess of parchments in the cabin for a blank one and retrieved an intact inkwell from one of the stowage cases. When she returned, Omanuju was counting out the seeds in the face of one of the sunflowers on the chest. "Each spiral of seeds on the face of the sunflower has the same amount of seeds in them. The first spiral had 8, the next 13, the next 21, the next 34. This is true of sunflowers in nature, as well as on the box. Each number in the sequence is a sum of the 2 numbers before it. Same for spines of a pine cone and the pattern on a pineapple, even the nautilus shell. If you bisect it and draw a grid over those lines, it's always the same sequence." Omanuju began to write numbers on the parchment Gabriella had brought. 0, 1, 1, 2, 3, 5, 8, 13, 21, 34, 55. "But how do we know where to start? Which gargoyle is first?" Gabriella asked. "On their heads. There are runes that say first, second, third, and so on," Ghede said. He pointed out the first gargoyle. Fortunately, the numbers on the dials were ones Gabriella could read. Runes were ancient, even in Nicomedes' time. But Gabriella could see why the inventor would use 2 numbering systems. Only someone who was very learned would have knowledge of both. Learning took patience, and as her father would say, "Patience begets wisdom." Hadn't Omanuju said Nicomedes would only want someone with wisdom to reach his treasure? She suspected that was what he had meant by worthy friend in the inscription. She set the dials into place as Omanuju calculated the sums. 0, 1, 1, 2, 3, 5, 8, 13, 21, 34, 55, 89, 144, 233, 377, 610, 987, 1,597, 2,584, 4,181, 6,765, and so on. When all 36 dials were set, Ghede tried the lid. It did not budge. They checked their math. It was perfect. They reset all the locks and started without including 0. No luck. Gabriella dropped her chin to her chest. She felt as if she had failed a test. Actually, she felt worse. How many dangers had they narrowly escaped? How many leagues had they sailed to be stymied by a box? Ghede must have felt the same way, for he slapped the box like one would a malfunctioning maze grinder or dock winch. "Well, there are only a few thousand more permutations to try," he said. "And tens of thousands of combinations of those," Omanuju added, slumped on his stool. Gabriella considered the riddle on the top of the box. "Numbers not of other numbers." Well, their numbers were certainly of other numbers, since they had been sums. She realized they probably could not have been more wrong. The decorations had led them astray, which perhaps they had been meant to do. Ghede picked a few tools from the walls and began working at the hinges of the box. "This might take a while," he said, a minuscule screwdriver clenched in his teeth. Gabriella pushed back from the table and wandered through the doorway into the next room. Scale models of machines stood on desks. Some were so large that they rested on the floor, waiting for someone to complete them. Gabriella could recognize the function of some: a digging machine with dirt scoops, a self-propelled wheelbarrow, even a floating ship like the Elan, but this one with folded wings on the sides. She wandered into the room's recesses where she found models covered with sheets. Why are these covered? Gabriella peeked under one sheet. Beneath were gears, armor, and blades. Not just sword blades, but rounded blades made for spinning, made for killing. She shuddered and walked to a drafting desk in the corner, where she found a sketch of another machine with whirling blades and bellows for launching darts with a gust of air. This machine had wheels. On the lip of the desk, where there was a small writing lead encased in wood, a pencil, very expensive and rare. She was about to take it when she noticed teeth marks on it. Probably Nicomedes' own tooth marks. The inventor felt close in that moment and very real. The words, "worthy friend," came back to her. She knew Nicomedes was long gone, but she could sense his presence powerfully here, which was why she left the pencil where she found it. This place was not a tomb, but it felt just as sacred. She knew she wanted something from Nicomedes, and she felt a need to behave as if she were worthy of it. "Machines for killing from a man of peace," Omanuju said beside her. She had not been aware of his coming into the room, but after seeing the way he moved on Kajil, it did not surprise her that he could move quickly and silently, even right next to her. "He must have felt like he was in great danger. That is why he must have come here," Gabriella said. She examined the marks on the pencil. She knew she bit down on quills when frustrated adding up sums for school. "I don't think he liked designing these machines. I think that is why he covered up the models with a sheet," she ventured. He did not want to be reminded. As they uncovered more drawings and lifted more tarps, Gabriella felt Nicomedes' personality revealing itself. The next room presented row upon row of bookshelves. Although they were dusty, the books sat neatly arranged and catalogued. In the corner of the room, waiting in a wide beam of dancing water light, it was a well-worn reading chair with an equally worn footstool. Gabriella thought about the hours the inventor must have sat here, reading, thinking, dreaming. The next room was the kitchen. Like the workroom tools, the pots were all aligned according to size. Forks, knives, and spoons rested in designated cubby holes, while goblets and plates were evenly spaced on a series of shelves. Nicomedes' bedroom was last. Gabriella stopped at the doorway when she saw the bed, fearful that his remains would be moldering there. But the bedclothes were empty and clean, the corners of the blankets tucked under the mattress as if waiting for Nicomedes to return, leaving Gabriella with a sense of sadness. This room was just beside the waterfall, and in addition to the skylight, there was a large bay window looking out into the lagoon. The window glass was clouded with age, but for some effort, Gabriella was able to turn the latch and push the window open. The sound and smell of the cascading water flooded the room, a welcome contrast to the tomb-like silence that had permeated the rooms they had passed through. Gabriella could imagine the sounds of falling water soothing a pensive Nicomedes to sleep. The angle of the window allowed her to see around the edge of the falls. The wyvern was still perched on the rocks, but its attention was no longer on the escaped Elan. The dragon was watching the lagoon, its neck curled backwards like a crane when hunting fish. Something caught its eye, and the wyvern leapt off its rocky roost. The falling water blocked her view, but Gabriella heard a small splash. The wyvern flapped back into view, a fat fish in its terrible teeth. Despite her fear of the creature, Gabriella smiled at its successful fishing. "Omanuju, sailors sail east on a regular basis, and stories of dragons are rare. Why have we met this one so easily?" "Dragons have always been there, even if they do not venture west much these days. Contrary to popular belief, ocean-going ships do not interest them much. Sailors avoid seas where dragons are common, but they have avoided those lanes so long they forget why. It's likely that dragons have flown over many a sailor only to be mistaken for birds." "Why did this dragon pursue us?" "Well, while ocean-going ships might not interest dragons much, ships of the air are another matter. When we take to the air, we are in the wyvern's domain. They have long memories, and I'm sure they do not fondly recall floating ships in the sky. Gabriella remembered something else Ghede had said. Omanuju, what is mage fire? Every dragon, wyvern, draghorn, or high dragon breathes fire, the same fire we have burning in our hearths and lamps. But there is a second fire that burns without heat that is actually magical. It is such pure magic that even the most powerful of mages is helpless against it. But it can be used to give a person wisdom or power. Some say it even has healing properties. It is called the mage fire. So, why did the Waver not use it on us? I suspect because according to legend, a dragon can only use his breath of mage fire once in his whole long life. Truly? Omanuju shrugged. The tales of old say that even high dragons have only one, maybe two breaths of the stuff. A dragon may live a long life of thousands of years and never use it. Some say dragons who have not used it in their lifetime breathe out their last breath with it. Anyone standing before that fire would gain incredible wisdom and insight. Gabriella looked back at the wyvern. The beast sat back and in surprisingly human fashion, bared its teeth, and picked them with one of its talons. We could use some wisdom now for that box, Gabriella said. I never thought this would be so hard, Omanuju, but I guess I was just naive. Damien came to mind again, his penchant for numbers. She remembered the last time she had walked with him after he had fallen into the water, and Mortimer had saved him. He had counted by primes that day to calm himself. Primes were his favorite numbers. Gabriella's body stiffened a moment before she spun around and sprinted back into the workroom, calling over her shoulder, Omanuju, I've got it! Numbers not of other numbers. Nicomedes means prime numbers. Tools were scattered all about the chest, but Ghede had had no luck breaking into it. Gabriella burst into the room just as the skipper threw a miniature hammer and chisel down on the table. Ghede, numbers not of other numbers are prime numbers, not divisible by any regular primes. I had not thought of that. Help me put them in, she said. Gabriella began clicking the sequence of prime numbers into place. She did fine up until the 60s. Then she had to slow down. By the time she had come up with 101, her head was hurting. Now, she did wish Damien were there, if only for this. How could she be sure of any of the numbers? She wondered if her brother was not a little magic himself to be able to come up with them so effortlessly. Omanuju swept into the room, blowing the dust off a book in his hands. He dropped it on the table and flipped the pages until he came to a table with 50 prime numbers. 2, 3, 5, 7, 11, 13, 17, 19, 23, 29, 31, 37, 41, 43, 47, 53, 59, 61, 67, 71, 73, 79, and so on. Gabriella dialed in the rest. When she finished, she could not bring herself to touch the lid. Her hands were shaking so hard. Go ahead, Ghede said. You've earned it. She put her hands on the small handles and pushed up. A clicking noise erupted from all the locks as the lid tilted open. Ghede let out a loud whoop, but Gabriella restrained her celebration. She wanted to make sure the box did not contain a second set of locks. There were none. The chest was empty except for a single leather folio. Gabriella's head felt light, as if it were full of hot air waiting to float away. She reached in reverently and removed the folio. The leather cover, having been closed for so long, did not want to stay open, so Gabriella held it open with her hand. She shivered with excitement as she handed something she knew Nicomedes only wanted his worthy friends to touch. The folio held a soft piece of vellum that Ghede lifted out and unfolded. It was covered with a variety of large symbols arranged in rows and columns, an unconventional map from a genius. It certainly did not look like a drawing of a maze or labyrinth. In the margins was more rune writing. What does it say? Gabriella asked. Follow the signs, Ghede and Omanuju said in unison. That is all? Yes, Omanuju nodded. Another riddle? Ghede examined the folio carefully for any details they might have missed. No, not a riddle. Omanuju said. A command. Those figures in the center of the page. They are not characters of any language. They seem to be signs. But what about the maze? I thought this was a map, Gabriella said, rubbing her temples. Omanuju sighed. We will just have to see when we reach this.